In this video, I will be doing a 3F vertical down weld using a weave pattern, and this is going to be on 3/16" thick carbon steel that's 2 inches wide. And my first step is to securely clamp this into my fixture and to make sure that my clamp is mostly out of the way of the weld torch as it moves along the seam. For this material thickness, I'll be using a wire speed of 153 and a voltage of 19, as well as a 90-10 mixed gas and 0.045" wire. So now I'm going to go over to my pendant and I'm going to select the desired program. So I'm going to go ahead and just select program 1, and then I'm also just going to make sure that the program's completely empty, even though the link said it had no points in it. And then lastly, I'll give the program a name just to make it easy to refer back to in the future. So just for this, I'll be giving it the name F3, and I'm going to go ahead and hit enter to confirm that new name. Because I intend to be weaving, I'll set my function mode to weave, and that means when I long press the green button on the end effector, it'll teach a weave instead of a linear segment. And then lastly, I need to make sure I have the correct weld speed, and that'll be 17 inches per minute. So now it's time to go ahead and begin teaching my program, but first, as always, I'm going to make sure I have the correct amount of wire coming out of the contact tip, and that'll just ensure that as I program my points, the contact to tip to work distance is correct. So I'll use my ruler and my snips to make sure that I have a 1/2 inch of wire sticking out, and then I'll put my gas cup back on so that I can begin teaching my program. I'll begin by recording a home position by using the green point button, and then I will drag the robot through a few more approach points, again recording them with the green button. Now I'll take care to drive the torch into the corner of the weld, making sure that the torch bisects the corner as well as has a 5-degree drag angle with respect to the seam. I'll use a protractor set at 5 degrees to make sure that I get the correct drag angle. Once I've done that, I'll be ready to teach this as the first point of my weave. And to teach this as a weave point instead of a normal linear point, I'll hold down the point button until it double beeps, and then I'll turn my arc on since this is where the weld begins. And I'll also store this orientation since I took care to set that orientation up. Also, with a weave, it's very important that each one of the points has the same exact orientation. So to achieve that, you have to use the recall orientation button, as I just did, and that'll ensure each one of these points has an identical orientation. So here, since I'm just teaching a midpoint, I can do a quick press. And again, with my final point, again, I will just do a quick press. So when doing a weave, the only press that is different is the initial point of your seam. So the first point of a weave, you hold down till you hear the double beep, and then that basically specifies that that particular weld will be a weave weld until you get to your final arc off. Now that I've done that, I'll teach a few retract positions just to make sure that the robot avoids the part as it retracts, and then I'm ready to do a dry run. During the dry run, I'll watch to make sure that the center of my weave pattern is centered along my weld seam. And as long as this looks good, I'll just let the dry run through, and then I'll be ready to weld. To enable weld triggering, I'll go to my weld tab and make sure that I turn the arc safety off, and you'll know it's off by the red border.